The morning sun rose over Seoul like it did every other day. People walked to work. Children ran to school. Mothers kissed their babies goodbye. Nobody knew that in 3 hours, the world would end. Park Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his warship, the Eternal Dawn, orbiting Mars. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. 20 years in the fleet had made him hard, but his wife Yuna always said his smile could still light up a room. He checked his messages. Yuna had sent him a video of their garden back in Busan. The flowers were blooming. She said she missed him. He smiled and saved the video. He would watch it again later. He never got the chance. At exactly 9:47 a.m. Earth time, the sky turned black. Thousands of ships appeared from nowhere, blocking out the sun across Asia, Europe, and Africa. They were massive, each one the size of a small city. Their hulls were dark purple, covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at. The Velric had arrived. Nobody had ever heard of them before. Nobody knew where they came from. But everyone learned very quickly what they wanted. They wanted the women. The first attacks hit without warning. Beams of blue light shot down from the ships, cutting through buildings like paper. But they were not trying to destroy everything. They were hunting. Their soldiers teleported to the ground in waves. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and forearms. Their eyes were completely black, showing no emotion at all. They moved through the streets with terrible purpose. They ignored the men. They ignored the children. They grabbed every woman they could find and dragged them toward collection points. Anyone who tried to stop them was killed instantly. Tae-ho received the distress signal 18 minutes after the attack began. He was drinking coffee when his communications officer screamed. The main screen filled with images from Earth, cities burning, people running, women being loaded onto transport ships like cattle. His coffee cup shattered on the floor. He did not notice. "Give me a connection to Busan," he said. His voice was calm. His hands were shaking. "Sir, all communications to the Eastern Hemisphere are down. We cannot get me a connection to Busan." They tried for 2 hours. Nothing worked. The Velric had jammed everything. Tae-ho watched the footage in silence. He saw mothers torn from their children. He saw wives ripped from their husbands' arms. He saw old women, young women, pregnant women, all being herded like animals. The men who fought back were cut down without mercy. The men who begged were ignored. In 6 hours, it was over. The Velric ships rose into the sky and vanished as quickly as they had come. They left behind burning cities, broken families, a silence that was worse than any scream. 200 million women were gone. Just gone. The world went mad with grief. Men wandered the streets calling names that would never answer. Children cried for mothers who would never come home. The hospitals filled with people who had simply stopped wanting to live. Tae-ho did not cry. He could not. Something inside him had turned to stone. 3 days later, he finally got confirmation. Yuna's name was on the list of the taken. Her garden in Busan had been crushed under a Velric transport. Her favorite dress was found in the rubble, torn and covered in ash. He held that dress for a long time. Then he folded it carefully and locked it in his personal safe. Captain Lee Sang-woo found him in his quarters that night. Sang-woo was younger than Tae-ho, with a sharp mind and cold eyes. He had lost 3 sisters in the attack. All 3 had been teachers in the same school. All 3 were gone. "The United Defense Council is meeting tomorrow," Sang-woo said. "They want you there." "What is there to discuss?" Tae-ho asked.
"A war, sir."
Total war. Tae-ho looked at the safe where Yuna's dress was locked away. He thought about her smile. He thought about her laugh. He thought about the way she always burned the rice but refused to admit it. "Good," he said. The council meeting was held in the underground bunker beneath New Geneva. Every military leader who had survived was there. Every politician who still had the strength to stand. The room was filled with broken men trying to hold their nations together. Admiral B. Kyan-soo sat at the head of the table. He was 70 years old, the most respected commander in human history. His daughter and 2 granddaughters had been taken in the attack. His hands trembled slightly as he spoke, but his voice was iron. "We have confirmed the identity of our attackers," he said. "They call themselves the Velric Empire. Our scouts have traced their departure trajectory. They came from a system approximately 400 light years away." "Do we know why they took our women?" someone asked. A young scientist stepped forward. Her name was Jo Mi-young, and she was one of the few female researchers who had been off-world during the attack. Her face was pale, but determined. "We recovered data from a crashed Velric ship," she said. "Their species is dying. Their females became sterile centuries ago. They have been harvesting genetic material from other species to try to save themselves. Human DNA is apparently compatible with their needs." The room fell silent. The horror of what that meant hung in the air like poison. "They are using our women as breeding vessels," Admiral Beak said quietly. "Our wives. Our daughters. Our mothers." A general slammed his fist on the table. "Then we go to war. We find them, and we burn them all." "It is not that simple," another officer said. "Their technology is far beyond ours. Their fleet outnumbers us 10 to 1. We would be sending our people to die." Tejo stood up. Everyone turned to look at him. "I have served in this fleet for 20 years, he said. "I have seen battles. I have seen death. I have never been afraid," he paused. "But I have also never had a reason to fight like this. They took my wife. They took our sisters, our daughters, our mothers. They took the heart of our species, and they expect us to do nothing." He looked around the room at the broken, grieving faces. "I do not care if their fleet is bigger. I do not care if their technology is better. I do not care if we have to sacrifice everything we have. We will find them. We will break them. And we will bring our women home." Admiral Beak nodded slowly. "The commander speaks for us all. From this moment, the human race is at war with the Velric Empire. Every resource we have goes to this fight. Every factory, every scientist, every ship. We will not rest. We will not negotiate. We will not stop until every last one of our people is returned to us." He stood and faced the room. "They thought we were prey. They will learn we are predators." Tejo returned to his ship that night. His crew was waiting for him, standing in perfect formation in the hangar bay. He looked at their faces. Every single one of them had lost someone. "They took everything from us," he said quietly. "Now we take everything from them." The crew did not cheer. They did not cry. They simply nodded. And in their eyes burned a fire that would not die until the Velric were nothing but ash. The war for humanity had begun. The factories never stopped. Day and night, the sound of hammers and machines filled the air across every human colony. Men who had been office workers now welded steel plates onto warship hulls. Scientists who had studied plants now designed weapons of destruction. Children too young to fight collected scrap metal from the streets. Grief had transformed into something else. Something dangerous. Choi Dong-woo had been a peaceful man once. He designed bridges and buildings, things that helped people live better lives. His wife, Minji, had been a nurse. She always told him that his gentle hands were meant to create, not destroy. Minji was gone now, taken with the others. Her hospital had been one of the first places hit. Dong-woo had not slept in 3 weeks. He stood in his workshop surrounded by blueprints and computer screens, his eyes red and burning. He was no longer designing bridges. He was designing death. "I call it the Wrath-class dreadnought," he told Admiral Beak during the presentation. "It has only one purpose: to kill Velric ships as efficiently as possible." The hologram showed a massive warship bristling with weapons. It was ugly and brutal, with no curves or beauty anywhere in its design. Every inch of it was built for war. "The main cannon can punch through Velric shields at close range," Dong-woo continued. "The secondary batteries can fire continuously for 6 hours without overheating. The armor is triple-layered with reactive plating." And here he pointed to the front of the ship. "I designed a reinforced prow." "For ramming?" Admiral Beak raised an eyebrow. "Ramming? That seems primitive." Dong-woo's eyes were cold. "The Velric think in patterns. They expect enemies to fight at distance, where their technology gives them advantage. They will not expect a ship to fly directly into them at full speed. Sometimes the most primitive weapon is the most effective. The admiral nodded slowly. How many can we build? If every shipyard works around the clock, we can produce 500 in 6 months. More after that? Build them. Build as many as you can. Across the colonies, the same scene repeated. Engineers designed new weapons. Chemists created more powerful explosives. Programmers wrote targeting systems that could track Velric ships through any interference. Everyone had lost someone. Everyone wanted revenge. Lieutenant Kong Yunbai had been on a deep space research mission when the attack happened. She returned to find her mother and 2 younger sisters gone. Her father had died trying to protect them. She found his body still lying in the doorway of their home, his hands reaching toward the sky. She buried him alone and then walked straight to the recruitment office. I want the most dangerous job you have, she told them. They gave her reconnaissance. Solo missions deep into Velric space, gathering intelligence on enemy positions. The survival rate was less than 20%. She did not care. Her first mission took her to the edge of Velric territory. She flew a tiny ship, barely bigger than a room, designed to avoid detection. For 3 weeks, she drifted through the darkness, watching enemy patrols and mapping their movements. What she found made her blood freeze. The Velric had outposts, scattered across a dozen star systems. Each one held thousands of human women in massive holding facilities. They were kept alive but barely conscious, hooked up to machines that Yunbai did not want to understand. She recorded everything. Every ship, every patrol route, every facility location, but the worst discovery came on her final day. She intercepted a Velric communication and managed to decode part of it. The message mentioned their homeworld, a planet called Vale Throws Prime, and it mentioned that the highest value prisoners women, with the best genetic markers, were being transported. Their Yuna's name was on the transport list. Yunbai transmitted her findings back to Earth and began the long journey home. She had given humanity its first real target. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. A damaged Velric scout ship was found drifting near Jupiter. Its crew was dead, killed by a malfunction in their life support. But the ship itself was intact. Scientists swarmed over it like ants, taking apart every piece of technology they could find. What they learned changed everything. Their hive mind is their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. Dr. Zhou Myung explained to the military council. Every Velric is connected to a central command structure. This allows them to coordinate perfectly across vast distances, but it also means they cannot think independently. If you disrupt their communications, if you force them to make fast decisions without guidance, they freeze. They literally cannot function. Commander Teho leaned forward. So we attack on multiple fronts. Hit them in so many places at once that their command structure cannot keep up. Exactly. Their ships are individually more powerful than ours, but they cannot adapt to chaos. And humans, she smiled grimly. Humans are very good at chaos. The months passed. The first Wrath-class dreadnoughts rolled off the assembly lines. Then more, then hundreds more. Alongside them came thousands of smaller warships, fighter craft and bomber squadrons. The human fleet grew larger every day. Taiho was promoted to fleet commander. His new flagship was the first Wrath-class ship completed. He named it the Yuna. Captain Sang-woo stood beside him as they watched the massive ship being loaded with weapons and supplies. She would hate that you named a warship after her, Sang-woo said quietly. I know. Taeho's voice was soft, but I want her name to be the last thing the Velric see before they die. Yunbai returned from her mission and was immediately promoted. Her intelligence had identified the location of every major Velric facility between Earth and their homeworld. More importantly, she had confirmed that the women were still alive. She stood before the council and delivered her report in a flat, emotionless voice. Only those who knew her could see the pain behind her eyes. The women are being held in breeding facilities across 12 systems, she said. They are alive, but they are being used. We do not have much time. The Velric are accelerating their program. If we do not act within the next year, we may lose them forever. Admiral Beak stood slowly. His age showed more than ever, but his determination had not wavered. Then we act now. Commander Tejo, you will lead the Vengeance Fleet. 10,000 warships, including 500 Wrath-class dreadnoughts. Your mission is simple. Cut a path through Valric space. Destroy everything in your way, and do not stop until you reach their homeworld. Tejo nodded. And then you burn it to the ground. The fleet assembled in orbit around Mars. 10,000 ships, arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. It was the largest military force humanity had ever created. On Earth, the remaining population gathered to watch the departure broadcast. Billions of people stood in silence, many holding pictures of lost loved ones. Tejo's voice came through every speaker on every human world. We are not going to war for territory. We are not going to war for resources. We are going to war because they took our families, our wives, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters. They thought we were weak because we loved. They will learn that love is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was harder than steel. We are coming for them, and we will not stop until every single one of our people is home. The fleet engaged their engines and began to move. The light of 10,000 ships burned across the sky like a river of fire. The long march to war had begun. The journey through Valric space was long and bloody. 6 months of constant fighting, 6 months of death, 6 months of watching friends die and enemies burn. The human fleet did not hide. They did not sneak. They flew straight into enemy territory with their weapons blazing. Daring the Valric to stop them, Commander Tejo stood on the bridge of the Una, watching another Valric outpost explode on the main screen. This was the 14th they had destroyed. Each one had been defended. Each one had fallen. Enemy ships approaching from the starboard side, Captain Sengwu reported. Looks like 40 cruisers. Standard patrol formation. Standard formation, Tejo repeated with a cold smile. They still have not learned. All ships break into attack groups and engage from multiple vectors. Show them what chaos looks like. The human fleet scattered like a swarm of angry bees. Instead of fighting in neat lines like the Valric expected, they attacked from every direction at once. Small fighters darted between the massive cruisers, drawing fire and creating confusion. Bomber squadrons hit the enemy engines while destroyers targeted their weapons. The Wrath-class dreadnoughts pushed forward, their reinforced prows smashing into damaged ships. It was over in 2 hours. 40 Valric cruisers reduced to floating wreckage. Tejo had lost 8 ships. 8 crews who would never see home again. He read every name on the casualty list personally, as he did after every battle. Sir, you should rest, Sengwu said quietly. I will rest when this is over. Sengwu did not argue. He knew better by now. The deeper they pushed into Valric space, the more they learned about their enemy. The Valric did not understand humans at all. They saw other species as resources, nothing more. The concept of love, of family, sacrifice for others, these things were alien to them in the truest sense. This confusion worked in humanity's favor. The Valric could not predict human tactics because human tactics were driven by emotion, not logic. Every battle plan was shaped by rage and grief. Forces the Valric hive mind could not calculate. 3 months into the journey, the fleet encountered something unexpected. A small ship approached them, broadcasting a message of peace. It was not Valric. The ship belonged to the Moreth, a species the Valric had conquered centuries ago. Their representative, a being with blue skin and 6 eyes, came aboard the Una to speak with Tejo. We have watched you fight, the Moreth said through a translation device. You are the first species to ever push this deep into Valric territory. We want to help you. Tejo studied the alien carefully. Why? What do you want in return? Freedom. The Valric have enslaved our people for 300 years. They use us as laborers, as test subjects. If you can destroy them, we will be free at last. And if we fail, the Moreth made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then we are no worse off than before. But we do not think you will fail. We have never seen a species fight with such fury. Your ships are smaller, your technology weaker, But your warriors do not stop. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. The Velric do not know how to fight an enemy like that. The Morath provided intelligence that proved invaluable. Star maps of Velric territory. Locations of weapons factories and supply lines. Most importantly, detailed information about Valethros Prime. The homeworld is heavily defended, the Morath explained. Orbital stations, ground batteries, a fleet of 40,000 ships. No one has ever attacked it. The Valric believe it is untouchable. They believe wrong, Teho said. The Morath also shared a warning. In all their history, they had seen the Velric conquer 12 different civilizations. Some had been powerful, with technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. All of them had been destroyed. The Velric are patient, the Morath said. They plan for centuries. They do not make mistakes. Many species have thought they could defeat them. All have failed. Teho looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, Yuno was waiting. No species has ever been human, he said quietly. The Morath tilted its head. What does that mean? It means we are not fighting for survival. We are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting because they took the people we love. And humans will do anything, absolutely anything for the people we love. The fleet continued forward. Private Yun Kite was 17 years old, though his military record said he was 19. He had lied about his age to enlist. His mother had been taken in the attack, dragged from their apartment while he was at school. His father had died. 3 months later, killed not by the Velric, but by grief. He simply stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped living. Kidashte had nothing left but the war. He served on a destroyer called the Storm, signed to a boarding team that specialized in capturing enemy ships. It was dangerous work. Most boarding teams did not survive their first mission. Kite had survived 11. The other soldiers called him Ghost, because he moved so quietly, and because something in his eyes looked already dead. But he was not dead. He was waiting. Waiting for the moment when he could rescue his mother and see her smile again. That hope was the only thing keeping him alive. For months into the journey, the Velric sent their response. A massive counterfleet of 2,000 ships appeared directly in the human fleet's path. It was the largest Velric force anyone had ever seen. They are trying to stop us here, Sangwu observed. If they can destroy our fleet in deep space, reinforcements from Earth will never reach us in time. Teho nodded. Then we do not let them destroy us. Signal all ships. This is the moment we prove what humanity is made of. The battle lasted for hours. It was brutal and chaotic, exactly the kind of fight humans excelled at. The Velric fought in perfect formation, exactly as their hive mind commanded. The humans fought like wild animals, each ship choosing its own targets, its own tactics. The Wrath-class dreadnoughts led the charge, their massive guns tearing holes in the Velric lines. When their weapons overheated, they rammed. One dreadnought, the Fury, destroyed 3 enemy ships by crashing directly through them before finally exploding. Kite's boarding team captured an enemy command ship, fighting through hallways filled with Velric soldiers. Kite killed 7 of them personally, moving with a speed and ferocity that terrified even his own teammates. When the battle ended, the Velric fleet was destroyed. 2,000 ships reduced to debris, floating in the void. Humanity had lost over 1,000 ships of their own. The casualty lists were long and painful to read, but they had one. They had faced the largest Velric force ever assembled, and they had crushed it. Teho allowed himself one moment of satisfaction, then he turned to his crew. This was not the end. This was just the beginning. The Velric sent their second-best fleet to stop us. Their best is still waiting at Valethros Prime. We have 2 months before we reach them. Use that time well. Train, prepare. Rest when you can. He looked out at the stars, toward the distant point where the Velric homeworld waited. The next battle will decide everything. And we either rescue our families and destroy the Velric forever, or we die trying. There is no other option. Lieutenant Yunbai had been running intelligence ahead of the fleet. She sent her final transmission that night, encoded and hidden within normal communications. I have confirmed the location of the primary detention facility on Valathros Prime. Our women are there. I can see the building from my position. Heavy guards, but the structure is not designed to withstand orbital bombardment. They never expected anyone to reach this far. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice cracked slightly. I can see them, Commander. Through the windows. They are alive. Please hurry. Tejo played that message for the entire fleet. Billions of people across human space heard it through relay satellites. They are alive, he said. Our wives, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, they are waiting for us. 2 more months. You will not fail them. The fleet pushed onward, toward the final battle that would determine the fate of 2 civilizations, Valathros. Prime filled the view screen like a purple wound against the blackness of space. The Velric homeworld was massive, 3 times the size of Earth, surrounded by rings of orbital defense platforms and a fleet that blotted out the stars behind it, Commander. Tejo counted the enemy ships. 40,000, maybe more. Each one bristling with weapons, each one crewed by soldiers who had never known defeat. His fleet had 15,000 ships left. Many were damaged. All were exhausted from months of constant fighting. It did not matter. They had not come this far to turn back. All ships report status, Tejo ordered. The responses came in one by one. Ready, ready, ready. 15,000 voices, all saying the same thing. We are ready to fight. We are ready to die. We are ready to bring our families home. Admiral Beak's voice came through from the command ship trailing behind the fleet. The old man had insisted on joining the final battle, despite his age and failing health. Commander, the enemy fleet is moving into defensive formation. They're protecting the planet, not attacking us. They expect us to break against their lines like waves against a rock. Then we will not be waves, Tejo replied. We will be the storm that breaks the rock itself. All ships execute Broken Sky. Broken Sky was a suicide mission disguised as a battle plan. Thousands of unmanned drone ships packed with explosives would launch ahead of the main fleet. Their only job was to crash into enemy command vessels, disrupting the Velric hive mind. While the enemy reeled in confusion, the real ships would punch through the gaps. It was desperate. It was reckless. It was exactly the kind of plan humans were known for. The drones launched in a wave, 10,000 points of light racing toward the Velric fleet. The enemy opened fire, destroying hundreds, then thousands, but there were too many. The drones slammed into their targets, explosion after explosion rippling across the Velric formation. For 3 precious minutes, the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired at empty space. The hive mind screamed as it tried to process attacks from 10,000 directions at once. All ships forward. Tejo roared. Break their line. Get us to that planet. The human fleet surged ahead. Yuna led the charge, her massive engines burning at maximum power. Velric ships tried to block her path. She went through them, her reinforced prow crushing smaller vessels while her guns tore apart larger ones. Behind her, the rest of the fleet followed. It was not elegant. It was not organized. It was brutal, bloody chaos, exactly what the Velric could not handle. Captain Sang-woo commanded the secondary assault, leading a group of ships around the enemy flank. His mission was to destroy the orbital defense platforms that protected the planet's surface. Target the power cores, he ordered. 1 good hit, and the whole station goes down. The ships swept through the Velric defenders, trading fire at point-blank range. Sang-woo's vessel took hit after hit, but he refused to pull back. He watched the first defense platform explode, then the second, then the third. A Velric missile punched through his ship's armor and detonated in the engine room. Alarms screamed. Fire spread through the corridors. His crew began to evacuate. Sang-woo stayed at his post. Keep firing, he said calmly, blood running down his face from a gash on his forehead. Every second we fight is another second for our people to reach the surface. He destroyed 2 more platforms before his ship finally died. The evacuation pods launched just before the reactor exploded, carrying his wounded body to safety. On the planet's surface, the ground assault began. Dropships fell from the sky, like rain, carrying millions of soldiers into the heart of Velric territory. They landed in the middle of enemy cities, in factory complexes. In military bases, Private Kitei's dropship crashed hard, killing half the soldiers inside. He crawled out of the wreckage, his rifle in his hands, and immediately started shooting. Velric soldiers poured toward him from every direction. He did not feel fear. He did not feel pain. He only felt the cold certainty that his mother was somewhere on this planet. Nothing would stop him from finding her. His squad fought there, way through the streets, following the coordinates Yunbai had provided. The detention facility was 3 kilometers ahead, a massive gray building surrounded by walls and guard towers. "That is where they are keeping them," Kitei said. "That is where we need to go." The fighting grew more intense as they approached. The Velric knew what the humans wanted. They threw everything they had at the advancing soldiers, desperate to protect their prisoners. But humans had something the Velric did not. Understand, love, rage, the willingness to die for someone else. Kitei took a wound in his shoulder. He kept fighting. Took another in his leg. He kept moving. By the time he reached the detention facility gates, he was covered in blood, most of it not his own. The gates fell. The walls fell. The guards fell. And then Kitei was inside, running through corridors filled with cells. He saw them. Women. Hundreds of women locked behind glass walls, hooked up to machines that hummed with alien technology. "Get them out!" he screamed. "Get them all out!" Oh! His squad went to work, breaking open cells and carrying women to safety. They were weak, barely able to walk. Many of them cried. Many of them could not speak. Kitei searched every face, looking for his mother. He found her in the last row of cells. She was thin and pale, her hair gray now instead of black. Her eyes were the same. Those kind, gentle eyes that had watched over him his entire life. "Mom," he whispered. She looked at him. For a moment, she did not recognize the blood-covered soldier standing before her. Then her eyes widened. He carried her out of that place himself, holding her in his arms like she used to hold him when he was small. He was crying now, tears cutting lines through the dirt and blood on his face. "I came for you," he said. "I promised I would come for you." Above the planet, the space battle reached its climax. The Velric fleet had recovered from the initial chaos and was fighting back hard. Human ships were dying by the hundreds, but the line had been broken. More and more soldiers reached the surface. More and more women were being rescued. Commander Taeho guided the Yuna toward the capital city, where the Velric leadership was hiding. The ship was badly damaged, venting atmosphere from a dozen holes in its hull. "Sir, we should pull back and make repairs," his first officer said. "No, we end this now." The Yuna crashed into the landing zone near the central palace, her hull scraping across the ground for 2 kilometers before finally stopping. Taeho led the boarding team personally, fighting his way through the last of the palace guards. He found the Velric High Arbiter in the throne room. The alien was tall, even for its species, with golden markings on its gray skin that indicated its rank. It looked at Taeho with those empty black eyes, showing no fear. "You have destroyed everything," the Arbiter said. Its voice was cold and flat. "Our fleet, our defenses, our future. And for what? For females. They are merely biological components. Resources to be used." Taeho raised his weapon. "They are not resources. They are our wives, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters. They are everything that makes life worth living." "You do not understand," the Arbiter said. "This attachment, this weakness, it is why your species will always be inferior." "No," Taeho said quietly. "It is why your species is about to become extinct." He pulled the trigger. The Arbiter fell, and with it, the last hope of the Velric Empire. Without their central command, without their hive mind, the remaining Velric forces collapsed into confusion and were destroyed. Taeho stood over the body of his enemy and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph. Just an empty ache where his rage used to be. He thought about Yuna. He hoped she was among the rescued. He hoped he would see her smile again. But deep in his heart, he already knew the truth. Some wounds could never be healed. Some losses could never be recovered. But at least the war was over. At least the dying could stop. At least humanity had won. 1 year had passed since the fall of Valethro's Prime. The Velric Empire was gone, scattered into 1,000 broken pieces. Their homeworld was a burned-out shell. Their fleet was destroyed. And the survivors were hunted refugees hiding in the darkest corners of space. Humanity had won the greatest victory in its history. But victory, Tahoe had learned, did not mean happiness. He stood before the memorial wall on Earth, a structure that stretched across an entire valley. 200 million names were carved into its black stone surface. 200 million women who had been taken. Not all of them had come home. Yuna's name was there, carved into the wall alongside millions of others. She had died 3 days before the rescue. 3 days. After everything he had done, after all the battles and the blood, he had been 3 days too late. Tahoe visited the wall every morning. He would stand before her name and talk to her, telling her about his day, about the weather, about the small things she used to love. Sometimes he imagined she could hear him. Mostly he just stood in silence, feeling the weight of her absence like a stone in his chest. He was not alone in his grief. Across the human colonies, millions of families were trying to rebuild. Some had been reunited with their loved ones. They were the lucky ones, though even they carried scars that would never fully heal. Others, like Tahoe, had found only graves. The rescued women struggled to return to normal life. Many could not speak about what had happened to them. Many woke up screaming in the night. The Valric had taken more than their bodies. They had taken something from their souls that could never be replaced. Dr. Joe Myung led the rehabilitation program, working with hundreds of therapists and doctors to help the survivors. It was slow, painful work. Some women recovered, some did not. Myung herself often cried at night, overwhelmed by the suffering she witnessed every day. But she did not stop. None of them stopped. That was what it meant to be human. Captain Sang-woo had survived his injuries, though he walked with a limp now and would never command a ship again. He found a new purpose as a teacher at the rebuilt military academy, training the next generation of soldiers. "I hope you never have to fight a war like we did," he told his students on the first day of class. "But if you do, remember this. Your greatest weapon is not your gun or your ship. It is the people beside you. It is the bonds you share with your family and friends. That is what gives you the strength to keep fighting when everything seems lost." His students listened carefully. Many of them had lost parents or siblings in the war. They understood what he meant in a way that no textbook could ever teach. Lieutenant. Yunbai had been offered dozens of medals and promotions. She refused them all. Instead, she devoted herself to helping the rescued women rebuild their lives. She ran support groups, organized housing assistance, and spent countless hours simply listening to survivors tell their stories. "I was supposed to protect them," she told Tahoe one evening. "My mother, my sisters, I failed." "You did not fail," Tahoe said. "You gave us the intelligence we needed to find them. Without you, we would never have reached them in time." "But I did not save my own family. Neither did I." Tahoe looked at her with tired, understanding eyes. "We cannot change the past. We can only honor their memory by helping those who survived." Yunbai nodded slowly. She did not feel better, she never would, but she understood. Grief was not something you got over. It was something you learned to carry. Private Kitano. Sergeant Kitano had returned home a hero. The media wanted to interview him. Politicians wanted to shake his hand. He refused it all. "The heroes are the ones who did not come back," he said. He lived quietly with his mother in a small apartment near the coast. She was recovering slowly, learning to smile again, learning to sleep without nightmares. Kite took care of her the way she had taken care of him when he was young. He cooked her meals. He read to her at night. He held her hand when the memories became too much. It was not the life he had imagined for himself, but it was enough. Admiral Beek announced his retirement 6 months after the war ended. He was 80 years old now, his body worn down by decades of service and the final, desperate campaign. His farewell speech was broadcast across all human worlds. "We built our victory on grief," he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "We turned our pain into power, our loss into determination. We became warriors because we had no other choice. He paused, looking out at the audience with tired but proud eyes. But we cannot be warriors forever. The war is over. The enemy is gone. Now we must learn to be something else. We must learn to be healers. We must rebuild what was broken. We must raise children who know peace instead of war. He straightened his shoulders, standing tall one last time. Build your future on hope, not on grief. That is my final order. The galaxy had changed. News of humanity's victory spread to every corner of known space. Species that had lived in fear of the Velric for centuries now looked at humans with a mixture of awe and terror. The Morith, finally free after 300 years of slavery, became humanity's closest allies. They shared their technology and their knowledge, grateful beyond words for the destruction of their oppressors. Other species were more cautious. They had seen what humans could do when provoked. They had watched a supposedly primitive civilization destroy the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They remembered the fury in human eyes, the relentless advance that nothing could stop. A new warning spread through the stars, whispered from one species to another, passed down from generation to generation. Never harm a human's family. They do not forgive. They do not forget. And they do not stop. Humanity did not seek to conquer. They did not want an empire. They only wanted to live in peace, to rebuild their world, to hold their families close and never let go. But everyone knew the truth. If anyone ever threatened what humans loved again, the response would be swift and absolute. Tejo retired from the military 1 year after the war. He could not bear to command ships anymore. Every order reminded him of the battles. Every battle reminded him of Yuna. He bought a small house in the countryside, far from cities and crowds. He planted a garden, just like the one Yuna had loved. He grew the same flowers she used to grow, watering them each morning as the sun rose. Some days were harder than others. Some nights he woke up, reaching for her, forgetting for one terrible moment that she was gone. The grief never went away. It just became part of him, woven into his soul like thread into cloth. But there were good moments too. Visits from old friends. Letters from soldiers who remembered his leadership. The simple pleasure of watching flowers bloom. He kept her dress in a frame on the wall, the one he had found in the ruins of their home. It was faded now, worn by time, but still beautiful.